They made us laugh, cry, and question our life choices before coffee. But what really happened after the cameras stopped rolling? From fame and fortune to scandals, struggles, and glow-ups. You won't believe the Friends cast didn't just age, they transformed. Some soared higher, some vanished, and some, well, let's just say life hit harder than Joey hitting on a date. Number 1. Joey Tribbiani, Matt LeBlanc. Matt LeBlanc didn't walk into Friends as a superstar. He walked in as a fighter. Before the fame, before the millions, before the world turned. How you doing into a global pickup line, he was just another actor surviving auditions, rejection, and the kind of broke that makes instant noodles feel fancy. Then Joey Tribbiani happened, and suddenly Hollywood had a new king of lovable chaos. On screen, Joey was all confidence carbs and wildly questionable logic. He flirted first, thought later, and somehow made being clueless look like a superpower. But off-screen, LeBlanc's journey was a lot less smooth and a lot more sweat struggle and stubborn persistence. That easy charm fans fell for. It was built on years of grinding for a shot that almost never comes. And when it finally did, he didn't just play Joey, he owned him. Every smirk, every pause, every ridiculous line landed like comedy gold. He became the guy audiences couldn't resist, sweet, shameless, funny, and just dumb enough to be brilliant. Later, he proved he was more than one iconic role, reinventing himself with stronger, more mature performances, while still keeping that signature laid-back cool. Matt LeBlanc's story isn't just about fame. It's about turning rejection into momentum pressure, into punchlines, and one goofy ladies' man into television legend. Number 2. Chandler Bing, Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry didn't just play Chandler Bing, he made sarcasm feel effortless. With every awkward smile, quick comeback, and perfectly timed pause, he turned insecurity into comedy gold. Chandler was the guy who joked his way through everything. Like life was one long, uncomfortable moment he somehow made hilarious. But behind the laughs was something heavier. Off-screen, Perry faced pressure addiction and personal struggles that made his story far more complicated than fans ever saw. That's what made him unforgettable. He wasn't just funny, he was human. He made pain relatable, loneliness oddly charming, and emotional damage sound like the best line in the room. Although he's gone, Matthew Perry's presence still lingers through Chandler, through the jokes people still quote, and through the honesty he brought to both comedy and life. His story isn't just about making people laugh, it's about the sadness behind the smile, and the kind of brilliance people don't forget. Number 3. Monica Geller, Courteney Cox. Back then, Courteney Cox didn't just play Monica Geller, she made perfection look hilarious, exhausting, and weirdly relatable. Monica was the queen of clean apartments, competitive meltdowns, and the kind of high-strung energy that could turn dinner plans into a military operation. She was funny, intense, lovable, and always one tiny disaster away from losing control. But beneath all that order was something more real: insecurity, pressure, and the constant need to prove she had everything together. That's what made Monica unforgettable, and Courteney played it perfectly. She gave the character sharpness, warmth, and just enough vulnerability to make all that chaos feel human. Now, years after Friends, Courteney Cox has built a career far beyond Monica's apartment walls. She stepped into darker, more mature roles with Scream, found new success in Cougar Town, and proved she was never just the organized one from a hit sitcom. The laughter is still there, but now it comes with experience, confidence, and a presence shaped by time. Then she was America's favorite control freak. Now she's a lasting Hollywood name who turned pressure, reinvention, and staying power into her own kind of legacy. Number 4. Ross Geller, David Schwimmer. When Friends began, David Schwimmer became known to the world as Ross Geller, the intelligent, awkward romantic who could turn love jealousy and bad timing into comedy history. During the show's run, Ross became one of the most talked-about characters on television, and Schwimmer's mix of sincerity, frustration, and emotional chaos made him impossible to ignore. But unlike Ross, whose life always seemed one disaster away from collapse, Schwimmer moved through Hollywood with a quieter, more deliberate path. After Friends, he didn't chase fame in the loudest way. Instead, he shifted into directing theater and more dramatic work, slowly building a reputation beyond sitcom comedy. He took on projects that showed more restraint and depth, proving he was far more than the guy yelling about a breakup or saying the wrong name at the altar. Over the years, his career became less about celebrity and more about craft. By 2026, David Schwimmer stands as one of the most respected members of the cast, less flashy, more grounded, and still remembered for turning Ross into one of TV's most painfully human characters. Number 5. Gunther, James Michael Tyler. When Friends first began, James Michael Tyler wasn't introduced as a major star or a breakout character. He was simply the man behind the counter, at Central Perk, quiet, observant, and almost always standing just a little too close to Rachel's orbit. But that was exactly what made Gunther work. What started as a background role slowly turned into one of the show's most memorable recurring characters. With almost no need for big monologues or dramatic scenes, Tyler built Gunther through timing, expression, and that perfectly tragic, one-sided love story fans never forgot. As Friends became a worldwide phenomenon, Tyler's face became instantly recognizable, even without the spotlight ever fully shifting onto him. After the series ended, he continued appearing in television and film, carrying the same modest, grounded presence that made him so likable in the first place. His career was never about chasing the loudest fame, but about being part of something lasting. Later in life, his story took a more emotional turn when he publicly faced prostate cancer. He spoke about it with honesty and courage, and that gave many fans a different reason to admire him. James Michael Tyler passed away in 2021, but his legacy remained deeply tied to Friends. He may not have been at the center of the couch, but he became one of the heartbeats of the show anyway. Number 6. Janice, Maggie Wheeler. During the Friends years, Maggie Wheeler did something very few actors ever pull off. She turned a recurring side character into a full-blown pop culture event. Janice was never meant to dominate the room, yet somehow she always did. With that unforgettable laugh, exaggerated voice, and perfectly timed entrances, Wheeler made Janice impossible to ignore. What could have been a one-note comic role became one of the show's most iconic running gags, and every return felt bigger than the last. But Maggie Wheeler's career was never limited to just one unforgettable catchphrase. While Friends made her instantly recognizable, she continued building a steady career through television, film, and especially voice work. She appeared in a range of projects, including animation and guest roles, showing a versatility that often gets overlooked because Janice became so legendary. Over the years, what stayed consistent was her commitment to performance, bold, precise, and never afraid to go all in. Her story is a reminder that sometimes the loudest characters leave the longest echo, and in Maggie Wheeler's case, one recurring role was enough to become television history. Number 7. Mike Hannigan, Paul Rudd. By the time Paul Rudd arrived on Friends, the show was already a phenomenon, which made his job even harder. Walk into a beloved world late and somehow feel like he had always belonged there. But that's exactly what he did. As Mike Hannigan, he brought something rare to the series' calm. In the middle of all the chaos, misunderstandings, and emotional overreactions, Mike felt steady, warm, and unexpectedly real. He wasn't the loudest character in the room, but that quiet charm made him stand out. For Paul Rudd, Friends was one chapter in a career that kept growing long after the sitcom ended. He had already built momentum in film, but over the years, he became one of Hollywood's most reliable and likable leading men, moving easily between romantic comedies, smart humor, and major blockbuster roles. What made his path different was consistency. He never seemed to force the spotlight, yet somehow kept ending up in it. From the sweet, slightly awkward guy at Phoebe's side to a global movie star, Rudd's career only expanded. His story feels less like a sudden explosion and more like a long, effortless rise, the kind that makes success look easy, even when it never really is. Number 8. Rachel Green, Jennifer Aniston. When Friends premiered, Jennifer Aniston didn't just land a hit role, she stepped into a cultural storm. As Rachel Green, she became the face of a generation. Stylish, funny, emotionally messy, and impossible not to watch. During the show's run, Rachel evolved from a spoiled runaway bride into one of television's most beloved female characters, and Aniston's performance made that journey feel effortless. At the same time, her fame exploded far beyond the series, turning her into one of the biggest stars of the late 90s and early 2000s. But unlike many sitcom actors who struggled to escape one iconic role, Aniston kept moving. After Friends, she built a major film career balancing romantic comedies, drama, and later streaming projects with surprising longevity. Her public image also became a constant subject of media attention, which meant her life off-screen was often watched as closely as her work on it. Over the years, though, she managed to outlast the noise. What began as Rachel's breakthrough became a much bigger story, one about resilience, reinvention, and a career that never stopped growing long after she walked out of Central Perk. Number 9. Carol, Jane Sibbett. During the early years of Friends, Jane Sibbett stepped into the role of Carol with a kind of quiet confidence that changed the tone of every scene she entered. Carol was never written to be the loudest person in the room, but she carried something more lasting: honesty, maturity, and the emotional weight of a life already moving in a different direction. In a show built on jokes, breakups, and romantic chaos, Carol represented a more grounded kind of change. Through Sibbett's performance, the character became more than just Ross's ex-wife. She became part of one of the series' most important shifts in representation on mainstream television. While Friends gave her a wide audience, Jane Sibbett's career extended beyond that role through television and film, with work that often leaned into warmth, sincerity, and emotional clarity. She never built her image around flashy stardom, and that may be exactly why her presence stayed memorable. Her path feels less like a celebrity spotlight story, and more like the career of someone who brought truth to every role she touched. In the world of Friends, Carol may not have had the biggest entrance, but she helped give the show one of its more meaningful layers. Number 10. Jack Geller, Elliott Gould. During Friends, Elliott Gould brought Jack Geller to life with the kind of charm only a seasoned actor could make look effortless. Jack wasn't just Monica and Ross's father. He was witty, offbeat, sometimes clueless, and somehow always entertaining. Gould gave the role warmth beneath the sarcasm, turning what could have been a simple sitcom dad into one of the show's most memorable family figures. Long before Friends, Elliott Gould was already a major name in film, with a career shaped by classic performances and decades of reinvention. His arrival on the show added weight and history, and that's part of why Jack always felt real. After Friends, Gould continued working across film and television, carrying the same relaxed confidence that had defined him for years. His story wasn't about sudden fame, it was about endurance, legacy, and the rare ability to stay relevant across generations. Number 11. Phoebe Buffay, Lisa Kudrow. During Friends, Lisa Kudrow did something almost impossible. She made Phoebe Buffay feel completely unpredictable and completely real at the same time. Phoebe could walk into a scene with a bizarre song, a strange story, or a line that sounded totally unhinged, then suddenly reveal more honesty than anyone else in the room. That balance of eccentric humor and emotional depth is what made Kudrow's performance so special. She didn't play Phoebe like a joke, she played her like a person who had survived a lot and still chose to stay light. After Friends, Kudrow didn't just live off one iconic role. She expanded into writing, producing, and more offbeat comedy, building a career that reflected the same intelligence and originality she brought to Phoebe. Her path showed that behind the quirky charm was a sharp, creative mind that never needed to follow the usual Hollywood script. Number 12. Susan Bunch, Jessica Hecht. During Friends, Jessica Hecht gave Susan Bunch a calm, intelligent presence that quietly changed every scene she was in. Susan wasn't flashy, and she didn't need to be. What made her stand out was the way she held her ground, sharp, confident, and emotionally steady, even when everything around her was awkward or tense. In a show built on fast jokes and romantic chaos, Susan brought a different kind of energy, and Hecht played her with enough nuance to make the character feel far more important than a typical supporting role. After Friends, Jessica Hecht continued building a respected career across television, film, and especially theater. Rather than chasing celebrity, she became known for strong, thoughtful performances and the kind of consistency actors spend years trying to achieve. Her path was never about noise, it was about depth, craft, and lasting credibility. Number 13. Judy Geller, Christina Pickles. During Friends, Christina Pickles made Judy Geller far more memorable than a typical sitcom mother ever had the right to be. Judy wasn't loud in the obvious way, but every line carried weight, sharp judgment, old family habits, and just enough hidden affection to make things complicated. Through Pickles' performance, Judy became the kind of parent who could make Monica feel 12 years old again with one sentence, then somehow still make the audience laugh. She brought precision, restraint, and years of acting experience to a role that could have been flat, but never was. After Friends, Christina Pickles remained respected as a seasoned performer whose career had already stretched across stage and screen long before the sitcom ever began. Her story feels less like a sudden rise and more like the work of an actress whose strength was consistency. In Friends, she didn't need a huge storyline to leave a mark. She just needed perfect timing and that unmistakable maternal edge. Number 14. Emily Waltham, Helen Baxendale. Emily came into Friends like a romantic surprise and left like a full-blown emotional earthquake. At first, she felt like the rare woman who might actually bring stability to Ross's chaotic love life, smart, graceful, and different from the usual whirlwind energy around him. But of course, this is Ross Geller we're talking about, so peace was never going to last. What started as a fast-moving romance turned into one of the most infamous moments in the entire series, and suddenly Emily wasn't just a love interest anymore. She was part of one of Friends' biggest disasters. For Helen Baxendale, that role put her in front of a massive international audience, but she never seemed interested in becoming a loud Hollywood celebrity. Instead, she kept her career more grounded, continuing with British television and drama, rather than chasing the kind of fame that swallows people whole. That actually makes her story more interesting. Emily may have entered the show as a temporary character, but Helen played her with enough sincerity to make the fallout feel real. She didn't stay long, but she left Ross the audience and honestly, half the wedding guests emotionally damaged. They started as 6 friends in a coffee shop, but somewhere along the way they became part of our own lives. We watched them fall in love, fall apart, make terrible choices, somehow survive them, and still show up on that couch like nothing in the world could really break them. And maybe that's why Friends still means so much. It reminds us of a time when life felt a little simpler, when 20 minutes could fix a bad day, and when the people on screen somehow felt like the people we knew best. Years have passed, the cast has changed, and life has taken each of them in different directions, but the feeling never really left. The laughter is still there, the memories are still there, and yes, even now Ross is probably still on a break somewhere in our minds.